Hello, my name's Emily and welcome back to my channel where I'm documenting the process of attempting to be a traditionally published author. Recently I started looking for literary agents for the first time, just doing some initial research and trying to get a list of names, and was pretty much immediately overwhelmed. This is the first time I've ever actually looked for literary agents, so if you have any tips for me throughout this video, please feel free to leave them in the comments. But I'm gonna let you know what my initial approach was and what I have found so far. QueryTracker is an online database of literary agents that most aspiring authors already know about, and it's free to make an account, and you can basically see a bunch of agents that are listed there. You can filter them based on the genre that you're writing. You can see immediately what country they're in and whether they're accepting queries or not this year. You can also see their preferred way of receiving submissions, so it could be through a website, through QueryTracker itself, or through email. So it's a really great free database to see a bunch of literary agents, but it's not necessarily totally exhaustive. But this is where I decided to start searching. I was pretty set on finding an agent from the UK specifically for a number of reasons, but mainly just because I live in Amsterdam and working with someone who lives in the UK is kind of easier, I guess, than working with someone based in the US. Also, just with all the stuff happening right now, it feels safer in a way to have someone based closer to home. Also, I feel like just culturally it would be easier for me to express myself to someone from the UK. Maybe I'm wrong about that, and maybe it really doesn't matter that much. But initially I was really stuck on this idea of I really need an agent from the UK, based in the UK. I'm going to show you some clips of what I actually found once I went onto QueryTracker and specifically looked for UK agents. So here's what happened. So I've just finished my first initial scrape through of QueryTracker. I'll be honest, I am not feeling super optimistic right now. I'm a little bit surprised. I only have 23 literary agents in the UK. And of those 23, there's only 16 agencies. And the general rule of thumb is that you can't apply to two agents from the same agency because of course they're gonna share the work between them and talk amongst themselves. So if there's only 16 agencies, effectively that's 16 options, even though there's 23 agents. 16 is a lot lower than what I was expecting. I thought there were going to be closer to 100 options in the UK, and I am realizing that I am gonna have to be really on the ball, and I'm going to have to make sure that when I apply to these people I am so confident and ready and the full package is there, because there's not that many opportunities to fail. There must be more than this. Because I know for sure there's 2 agents that I follow on TikTok who did not show up in this QueryTracker list. So there must be more than this, and there must be other places to look for agents. But yeah, I'm just a little bit shaken by the fact that on QueryTracker, which as far as I'm aware, let's see, biggest databases for literary agents UK. Yeah, so Google is telling me that QueryTracker, Jericho Writers, and the Association of Authors Agents are the 3 biggest directories. So yeah, I guess what I'm gonna have to do is start looking at these other directories as well and just hope that there are agents on Jericho Writers and the Association of Authors Agents. Hopefully there are some agents there that are not on QueryTracker, because if that is the only list I have to work with, yeah, that's a much smaller window of opportunity. So yeah, I was pretty devastated that there was such a small pool of agents from the UK, and it is very, very clear that the US, at least when it comes to YA fantasy, the US is just absolutely dominating. So after this happened, I saw someone on TikTok who I follow, who is based in the UK. She's also an aspiring writer. I saw her post about some of the agents that she was approaching, and I noticed that she is also submitting to people from the US. And I was like, oh, like, maybe this is not as big of a deal as I thought it was. Maybe, you know, if you work with an agent in the US, they can just as easily get you a really good deal in the UK. And when I spoke to her about it, her impression was really, it doesn't matter. So after that, I've kind of realized I need to be a little bit more open to working with people from the US as well. And in a weird way, that puts me in a completely different situation, because there are so many literary agents from the US representing YA fantasy that now it becomes a thing of like, how do I narrow down this list, because there are so many of them. Of course, that just means a lot more research. I've kind of settled on the decision of I would still prefer someone based in the UK, but I do need to be open to the fact that maybe the perfect literary agent for me is going to be based in the US. Another highly recommended way of finding agents is with comp titles. And basically by pulling books off of your shelf, flipping to the acknowledgement page and seeing who the agents are for books that you've enjoyed and books that kind of fit in the same category as your book does. But in general, to find books that are similar to yours, that your book would sit on a shelf next to in a store or in a library, and to find agents that way. This kind of brings me to a problem that I've been having, which is I'm not 100% sure which books to compare my book to. I'm finding it quite difficult to decide, particularly with the cover letter of, or my query letter you could call it, which I'm going to need to submit to agents. Comp titles are like a big part of that, and I think I'll probably talk a little bit more about that in one of my next videos. But essentially I need to figure out which books are already on the market that are similar to my book in one way or another, that I can use as a way of marketing what I've written to agents and demonstrating that what I've written has a place in the market and essentially can sell, that there's an audience for it, that people are going to want to read it. So I am very much still deciding which titles I'm going to use. So what I did is pretty much research for my book. I've researched YA fantasies, preferably with a little bit of romance, that have some sort of quest or voyage as the main driving factor of the plot. I've also been looking for books that have anti-colonial and anti-imperial themes, because that is a major theme in my book. And then also looking for books that feel like the movie Treasure Planet. This one has been so difficult, and I feel like that movie has heavily influenced what I write, especially in this book that I've just written. And Treasure Planet for me would be like a perfect comp title, but it's a movie. So I'm trying to find books that have a similar feel or have a similar vibe. So if you know any books that have a similar vibe to that, let me know. But those are the 4 things that I've kind of been looking for in trying to identify comp titles. So far, based on those categories, I've come up with 8 potential comp titles. I'm going to do my best to pronounce these names correctly. The Ivory Key by Akshuya Ramun, Number 2, The Last Map Maker by Christina Soontornvat. Number 3, Ray Bearer by Jordan Ifweko. 4, The Gilded Ones by Namina Fauna. 5, Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. 6, A Crown of Wishes by Roshani Chokshi. Iron Widow by Shiranjay Zhao. And finally, The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea by Maggie Tokuda Hall. So out of these 8 titles, 2 of their agents are open for submissions this year, and 3 of them were not open, but someone else in their agency was open who also represents YA fantasy. So just looking at comp titles, I've got 5 more leads to follow. I have wondered if that's also going to be a negative, because I know some agents don't want to represent something if they're already representing something else that's very similar. So I don't know, but at least 5 more names to investigate, 5 more names to research and potentially have a match with. And all of them are based in the US. So opening myself up to the US is definitely going to be... there's no avoiding it because it's just so dominated by the US. My third and final approach is probably not the fastest way to get like a long list of names, but more to get an in-depth sense of whether someone is going to be a good match or not, and that is TikTok. So there is actually one agent that I started following on TikTok just because she had like really useful information that she was sharing, and I was following her just out of pure interest. And in following her and watching her videos for like the past year, I feel like we would get on so well. I love her personality. I love the way she thinks and the way she operates. And so getting to know her, you could say, through TikTok, even though she has no idea who I am, has definitely given me like a good feeling about approaching her. And she's definitely someone that I've added to my list that I didn't see on QueryTracker, and I didn't see like through, you know, looking at comp titles or anything like that. This is not like a comp title, but I feel like because it's YA fantasy, I need to investigate this one as well. But anyway, so what I'm going to be doing is just looking for more agents on TikTok to see if I can find any there that I haven't been able to find so far. And the ones that I have found so far, I'm going to see if I can stalk them on TikTok if they have accounts there, because that's also going to give me a good sense of whether I think we would work well together or not. So that's as far as I've gotten so far. I have a pretty healthy list of 26 names that I feel relatively good about at this point, and I want to try and build to a list of at least 40 names. And then my idea is to break that list of 40 names up into batches and figure out who I would want to be in the first batch, and so on and so forth, and try and apply to all 40 of them by the end of the year. It's definitely a very time-consuming process looking for agents because, as I said, it's not just getting a list of names. Like, once you've got the name, you've still got to then go and research even more. You've got to look at their wish list. You've got to look at what they've published before. You've got to look at how like prestigious they are, because there's also advice, like the general advice is you want to have a mix of the sort of more famous agents and the more mid-range agents, because you just want to make sure that you're getting a good mix when you're applying to agents. So if you have any advice for me, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to continue following my journey in this, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!